Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Doodle Robot, and today is a robot report. So we're going to cover a couple of things. I have some clips from some whips that I was working on. I have some clips from, I was going to do a full color along in a book, but I kind of reached an impasse on that book, or an impasse in my life, which I'll talk about later. But I really want to comment on a video by Jackie at Spare Room Studio. She was talking about whips and her process of kind of not having them and abandoned pages. And I love the video. So if you're here for dramas, you're not going to find any. I just wanted to add to the conversation. So I have you on handheld here because I want to kind of show my process, and then I'm going to pick up my Zen Harmony book there and we'll work on it and discuss more. I just want to put in my 2 cents worth on whips because everybody's kind of at a different stage. Some people, like myself, I like to have several whips going. These are, not all of these are whips, but in a second I'll explain what's going on there. Some people like to have lots of whips. Maya says she has hundreds of whips. So, go Maya. And I've heard other YouTubers talk about they can't move on from one picture until they finished it, and then they move on to the next picture. So there's the extreme. I'm somewhere in the middle there. But the topic I want to talk about is a little bit different. It's about changing. So we'll get into that once I've shown you my little setup here. So on the top there, we've got a Mythographic, Alien Worlds, a Millie Murata, and Zen Harmony there. Those are all what I would consider long-term whips. Although, I've been on a mission lately to finish my whips. And I've actually finished all the ones that were not from this year, 2024. And so these are just ones that are from 2024. Now, Midnight Magic or Midwinter Magic, that's not started there, but that's a buddy color I have with my 2 besties, Carrie K and Maya. We're doing the deer page in there. It's a double page spread. So I would like to get it started maybe this month, November, or early December. It's not due till January, so that's where we are with that. But these 4 are long-term whips. And these here are whips that these here are whips that I started, I think, either this month or the end of last month to get ready for this month. So that's where we are. Now, if you recall from my what I'm coloring in November, or what did I call it? Coloring plans in November, I had a whole slew started, way more than this. Those are now, so right here, that's my paper that I used to put between pages. That's a book I was using for Zen Harmony for some inspiration for kimonos. And over here is kind of my dream pile, like things I'd like to try to get to. And over there's the done pile. And that's just cord. So, but yeah, here's the like short-term whips that I have going. This one here, Occult and Folklore, I think I had 5 or 6 kind of commitments this month. That's my last one. I finished the other ones. Recently I've been working in Zen Harmony, so that's the one I'm going to pull out and while we discuss kind of whips and theories on that. But my process after many years of coloring now, I think 3, maybe going on 4. I don't know. We'll say 3. At first, when I first started, I could only do 1 at a time, but then I started doing like 2 or 3 at a time, and it's gotten more and more and more. And at the beginning of the month, I think I had like 12 or 15. I don't know. You have to refer to my coloring plans for November video to check that out. I'll try to remember to link it below. I'm really bad at stuff like that. But I've gotten it down to a lot less. I feel like the pile is growing. I think there's like 10 done in the pile. 9 or 10. I'm not sure. I haven't really done anything in about a week and a half. I've been in one of those moods. You know, at the beginning of the month I was very upset. I was in just disbelief at the election, and now I'm I guess I'm in the mourning period. I'm mourning the death of democracy, so these days I kind of get up, I eat, I watch a little TV, I go back to bed. I get up, I eat, I watch a little TV, I go back to bed. I'm kind of in a funk, like democracy's gone. We shall see how that turns out, but it's not looking good. So I'm gonna flip you around and I'm gonna take out Zen Harmony and we're gonna talk more about the whole whip thing. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, we're back. So there's been a little change in plans since I shot the intro, but I do have Zen Harmony out since I said I was going to have that out and show you what I'm working on here. This is from much earlier in this year. I don't even know. Let's see here if we can look quickly. Yeah, for April, January, March, April. Yeah, from April. So I got hung up. This is why I like to have some whips going on, but I do like to circle back around to them pretty soon. I got hung up. You probably see. Yeah, I think I showed it in my what I'm coloring in November. I really got hung up on these leaves. Oh gosh, because each leaf is individually drawn. So I'm like, oh. So at first I just, on the leaves, I based them all in an Inktense color. I just kind of scribbled it on there and based it. And then on top of that, I started doing water-based markers, which, I got about halfway done with that, and I'm like, number one, it's tedious, and number two, and sometimes I don't mind the tedious, I like the tedious, but I don't know, in this case, I wasn't digging it so much. And I didn't know if I was going to continue with the water-based markers or just paint over it or something. So I recently, a couple days ago, I picked up some, being in the funk that I'm in, I picked out some more water-based markers and I started coloring the rest of the leaves, and I just continued and finished it. So once I finished, I'm like, well, it's okay. It's okay enough. I will allow it. So I don't want to redo it. I then moved on and did the ground here and the walkway there. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we can finish this one. It's good. So, yeah, as of a week ago, I'm like, those old whips in my pile, I don't think they're going to get done this year. But I don't know, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I was going to talk to you while I worked on her kimono. So this kimono, the geisha here, geisha number 2 here, is just based in water-based markers. Here she's done, so you can see all the little details. I love the way the Japanese women layer pattern on pattern with their kimonos and under accessories and all that. And the obi, is that what it's called? The one that wraps around the waist. I love how they do that. African women do that too with their dress style. They layer pattern on pattern. Oh, I just love that way of dressing. In America, we're all just about like the solid color, so it's boring. But yeah, this was fun to do, although a bit tedious, kind of in the way like Millie Murata books are tedious, but you kind of like a meditation for me. So, why that was easy compared to the leaves, I don't know, but something about the leaves. But anyways, yeah, I think it's going well. It's close to getting done. I have no idea what color I'm going to do the Sputniks there in the garden. So that's where that is at. I thought since I had you here, I would show you another whip that's a little farther along from when you last saw it. That's in Occult and Folklore. That is this one, my Buddy Color with Kiara. I think I just had the ground and background done before. Now we've gotten as far as the fire and the hair. We're working with a color palette that she picked out. So next are greens, so I don't know where I'm going to stick the greens, but here, maybe in her dress, we shall see how it goes. So yeah, that should be done by the end of the month, no problem. While I talk about, I want to start this one because I want to do another Alice in Wonderland page. This is Escape to Wonderland. And since I'm going to be talking, instead of me doing something tedious, which is hard for me to like do and talk at the same time, because I have that problem, I'm going to work on the background here. So for this one, I'm going to zoom you down a bit here. Okay, sorry about that. I turned you off when I was zooming it down. Let me try not to hit the button. Okay, so for this one, I like this hat. This is a good page, I feel, for me to practice on in this book, get a handle on the paper. I am going to, I've got these colors picked out for the background. I've got antique white. These are my favorite colors. Apple Barrel, I buy them all the time at Walmart. Antique white, yellow flame, King's Gold, and Sun-Kissed Peach. I've yet to use Sun-Kissed Peach, so I think Sun-Kissed Peach is going to be the background. And then with these other three colors, I'm going to do some circles or some kind of design with the other three colors. It's kind of not really monochromatic, it's kind of an analogous color scheme. I think I'm going to cut out some letters. So the hat, I did some research on Mad Hatter hats, and I like the ones that are kind of purple or red, like really jewel tone, rich, dark colors, even mauve-y a little bit. So I'm going to base the hat in one of those colors and then do similar colors on the designs on top. But I love this paper. So with this paper, I'm going to cut out some letters that says, we're all mad here. And so I'm going to place those around in the negative space after I get done painting the background. So yeah, so that should be fun. So I'm going to get you started here. I was inspired. Candace recently bought this. I've had this a while, but I've not actually used this color. Sun-Kissed Peach. She bought this, and she was showing all the pages she used it on. And I'm like, oh, that looks really good. I want to use it. I'll show you what it looks like. I have my swatches here. So, I need a Sun-Kissed Peach there. And then these are the other three colors I'm using. Nope, you don't see them. These are the other three colors I'm using here. So, pretty subtle because I want the graffiti collage that I'm going to add on there to stand out against it. I also want it to be different than what the hat's going to be. So, all right. So, shaking my paint. Sorry, you're shaking. Sorry. All right, so I've shaken it. Let's get going here. Have you ever seen my palettes that I made myself? Made my Doodle robot. I used to teach ceramics. All right, so there we go. Ooh, looks like it's just the right consistency. You didn't see that squeeze out because you're not in the picture. All right, there we go. Okay, gotta find a paintbrush here. I'm debating. I really need to clean out my paintbrushes. Some of them are getting scary. I have bought new ones, but they're put away in packages. So I always wet my paintbrush first. So I'm off camera wetting my paintbrush here. And then wiping it off. I then squeegee it a little bit. I gotta get the right glasses on now. Let's see, I can zoom you down a little bit more probably. Maybe. Hopefully the lights are good. All right. So typically I find it easier to like just go do a whole background. I've got my little brush out first. Go do a whole background and then put whatever I'm going to put on top. I don't know exactly what that will look like. So I want to add to Jackie's conversation a little bit on whips. So like I said, when I first started coloring, I started one and then I started another one and I had two going and that stressed me out so much. So I'm like, I can't take it. But soon after I'm like, oh yeah, I can take it. Now when I'm painting here, I don't want any weird lines, so I paint thickly. I use the thick paint to paint along the edge there. And then I feather it out so that after I'm done kind of edging around the whole thing, and I'm going to put some here in the center as well, I can then go with a bigger brush and quickly do the rest of it. But I don't want any weird lines, so that's why I'm exaggerating here. I'm kind of feathering out this line here. I don't know if this is going to require 2 coats or not. Some of these paints go on with 1 coat, these apple barrel paints. Some take 2, some even take 3 or 4. It just depends. Now, if I make a boo-boo when I cover the lines, I will oftentimes go back in and put that, I just take one of my micron pens and I go back in and I put the line back if I want that line there. If I'm covering up the line or something, like with gel pens or paint pens, because I'm outlining stuff or just covering lines for whatever reason, I don't really worry about it. So there's a fix either way if you mess something up. All right, so now I really rather like to, I'll move you closer here, because I'm too far away to see what I'm doing really. There we go, that's better. I may hit you with my forehead here. Now I don't mind having lots of whips on the go, but my personal goal is to finish all whips. I don't want to have whips. Now actually there was one, when I first started coloring in my first coloring book, there was one page that I abandoned. But in that book I decided, since I didn't like how it was going, so I abandoned it. And actually looking back, I'm like, why did I abandon this? It looks fine. So I turned it into a test page though. This was back when I thought I was going to have like 3 coloring books and that was going to be it. So I had all these things that I'd been seeing on these videos and I'm like, I need a place to test these on this paper because I don't understand, coloring book paper. And my first coloring book was a Creative Haven, back when they had the better paper. So, I've heard people say, if they abandon a whip, they just turn it into a test page or something, or just leave it abandoned. Some people have no problem with that. Now, like I said, back to my goal of finishing all whips. And that's just a personal goal that I have. I don't want to leave whips for too long. And you saw, like in some of my last months, I've been finishing some whips that were a couple years old. Very proud of myself. Here's why I have that goal. So I taught art for 25 years, gosh. And now I'm retired from that. But I was very much into doing abstract expressionist style work. They were like large works, like mural size. So we're talking about works that are like 4 feet by 6 feet big paintings. And they were abstract expressionist / graffiti-esque / social commentary I tend to be very into politics. My first degree that I got was economics. And so I have always kept up on, economic news. And later now that has kind of evolved into keeping up with politics. That's one of my passions. I love the politics. It's very Game of Thrones, though, man. Gotta have the stomach for it. And then after that, I went back and got my degree in art. Now, just because I have a degree in art and I've taught art, doesn't mean that I'm like the greatest artist in the world. So like I would tell my students, there's a lot of things you can do with art. Not everybody has Picasso's talent. Art is a skill that can be learned, I think, personally. All of my students who, we would call them the talented ones, they would all tell you that I'm not talented. I've just practiced a lot. And then I would have other students that just, I'm one of those teachers that was very, very much liked, although not at first. Like most people don't like me at first, but they're like, yeah, after we get to know you, we really like you. I think they always said something about my equity and my honesty. Like they like to treat all students the same, and we don't have to like try to read between the lines and guess what's going on with you and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice to hear. But so I would get students in my classes, and at the place where I taught for 17 years, I actually taught from beginning art all the way to AP art. So, I would get students that would be with me for the whole 4 years. And then another teacher came and she was doing the beginning art classes, and so I'd get students that would be with me for the 3 years. So, I knew them well. But some students, would come in my class and maybe they weren't good at art, but, it wasn't always just about doing art. I often talked about art being a meditative process and just a way to exercise your creativity, relax, meditate, learn some problem-solving skills. And I had projects designed for all people, not just people who were talented, but I wanted to get the kids in there and have them succeed. It's not a war with the kids. You want them to be successful. So I designed assignments that all skill levels could do. And so I would start out with like the ones that were the easiest. So once you get them hooked, they'll follow you. And I would talk about all the time. It's like, it doesn't matter if you fail at one project. There's many more projects. There's many more styles. You'll find the style that's for you. And also, you may love art, but maybe you're not good at doing art. Maybe you're good at analyzing art. Maybe you need to be an art historian or an art critic or somebody who runs a gallery. There's a lot of jobs in art that are not necessarily for those who are, have Picasso level skills. And so I get a lot of people that way, who a lot of people love to like walk in galleries and look at pictures, but they couldn't do art to save their lives. That doesn't matter. You can still love art. You can still do art. You don't have to be good at it. So there's a lot of aspects to art. So I was able to win a lot of people over. And then we would talk about process, and I would kind of throw a lot at the kids. Like we would do projects that took a long time, but I could see, when they were getting tired and bored, and so I'd have them come in on a day and they didn't know this was going to happen. I'm like, today we're just doing still life, where I'm going to flash a picture on the screen and you're going to draw it with your left hand, or you're going to only pick up this chalk. You're not allowed to draw it, you're going to pick up the charcoal and start trying to color it. I would have a lot of these like crazy, like wild things. And I always referred to it as today we're going to play with chalk. Today we're going to play with charcoal. Today we're going to play with these weird pins that I found. Today we're going to do this. I would always refer to it as playing in my classroom. So, I got off topic there, but for me, it was all, I was teaching them art, but I was also, the main goal was it was about the process. It was about losing yourself in this process of art. Don't worry about it being, being good. You're in high school. None of us are going to be Picasso yet. Most of us are not going to be Picasso. We're just going to play with these materials that we have, and we're going to learn the elements and principles of art while we play with materials and talk about artist process. We talked about process a lot. I'm rinsing my brush off because it's getting hard to paint with. So I'm giving it a rinse. I'm wiping it off. I'm losing my voice a little because I just woke up. It's like 2 in the morning. So my sleep schedule's all off because I spend too much time in bed these days. Morning. Anyway. So for my personal art, I didn't really have the time or energy to work on it. I mean, teaching is a very demanding job. It's not a 40-hour week job. And it's exhausting. Dealing with the politics and all the stuff that comes with teaching. And I'm sure you've heard all the horror stories online. It's just, over 25 years, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. They keep finding more things for teachers to do, but you're actually teaching 40 hours a week. And then you have your planning on top of that and your communications and all the committees you have to serve on, etc. So, that all comes after the 40 hours a week of teaching. So, not a lot of time for me to actually access my own creativity and do my own work. So I am super, super creative. I have so many ideas. You know how Mr. Monk would say that his detecting skills were both a blessing and a curse? It's like, yeah, for me, creativity is like that. And for me, creativity is a learned skill that comes out of teaching. Figuring out how to talk to youngsters about art and convey, the information I want to convey. And then mostly it's about helping, the way I got super creative with my ideas is helping students come up with their ideas on their projects that they want to do. So in my class, we would always have, okay, well, here we're going to learn about cubism and shape and movement, and maybe that was like the main thing we were learning about. And then there's project. All right, so you need to do cubism, as we've learned how to do. I've taught them several ways to do cubism. You can do it whichever way you like. It needs to be, I would give them the parameters of the assignment. And then I would send them back to do their thumbnail sketches of what they're going to do. And so a lot of times, kids would call you over. It's like, well, I have this idea. I don't know how to do that. And then, then the teacher's job is so then you just start throwing out ideas for them. I would list, rattle off 9 or 10 ideas. Okay, well, you could do your walrus by the sea. You could put the walrus on a table like a still life. You could put the walrus in a hat. You could, you rattle off all these ideas. And then, when you see the light go off in the student's eyes, stop rattling off ideas. Or maybe the light doesn't go off in their eyes, but then you send them back to their desk to think about it. You're like, maybe make a list of things you could do with your walrus. Where could your walrus be? Because they always had to have, foreground, middle ground, background. It's like, we're not going to do a hat floating in the air and nothing else going to be on the page. That's not good composition. So, you know, in coloring books, it's fine. I'm not judging the artist here. But you'll see oftentimes I don't just color something that's like floating on the page. I'm going to put a background on it, then I'm going to have some graffiti, and then the hat will be there as well. This is why I do the things I do. So I have lots of creativity and lots of ideas. That's the point of that story. So much so that it's hard to harness. So very little time to actually work on my own thing. When I did have time, I like spent it sleeping. I'm looking for another brush here. A bigger brush. Okay. So I find it easy to come up with the ideas, and I would find it easy to start these super large murals. Sorry, I was wetting my brush, wiggling you all over the place. And so I would find myself, we'd have a break in school. I taught in a school that was year-round, so we would have 9-week terms, 9-week quarters, and then we would have 2 weeks off. And so sometimes in the 2-week period, I would get recovered enough to actually start doing my own art. Catch up on my sleep, catch up on, other things that I had to do, and then I have a little time. Or sometimes in the summertime when we had 6 weeks off, I would, finally get enough sleep, get rested, get recovered. I could start painting things. And it's easy for me to start my ideas. I have so many ideas that I kind of want to get them started, but it's very hard for me to go back and finish them. I would get started on a piece and then school would start. And in the meantime, I'd be looking at all the pieces I had already started. This is going to require 2 coats. It's not quite opaque, but that's okay. I don't mind painting 2 coats. And so, based on, I guess my paintbrush was a little dirty. Based on my work schedule and demands, once school was in, there was not much art getting done because I was just too busy. So fast forward with the story. I got a new job and I was moving. I'd already moved. Let's see, I moved 3 times. 1, 2, I'd moved 3. So I was on my 3rd move in like less than a year. And here I was moving really far away, 8 hours away. Still in the same state, but 8 hours away. And I was, after having moved already twice, I was like, do I really want to drag all these canvases and rolled? I had stopped at some point. I'd stopped stretching them on canvas. I would just stretch them on the wall, or these rolls of canvases around, the state with me of pictures that I'm not going to finish. So I really cleaned, and I had been growing tired of like starting things. I'm like, why can't I finish anything? Why can't I start anything? I was really growing, and there were so many started and so many projects in my mind that I needed to do or wanted to do. Same thing. Need, want, same thing. It was just taking up, it was like stifling my creativity. And I decided that I wanted to try some smaller art, some different art. I was getting, you know, I was so creatively stifled with what I was doing that I needed a different way. So since I was moving, you know, across the state, far away, I decided I'm going to pursue that. So I probably had, remember, we're talking like 4x5, 4x6, 3x8 size paintings, feet, not inches. I went through that pile and I threw a whole bunch away. I painted over them, I put them in the garbage. Now I kept a bunch, but a lot of them I threw away. I rolled up the rest. If they were stretched, I unstretched them. I cut them off the stretcher bars and just rolled them up and put them in my car, thinking that, you know, when I go to my new job and my new life, I'm going to work on different mediums and different styles, and really, you know, with the goal of being able to finish things. So, you know, this was during COVID as well, right in the peak of COVID, where people are like, you know, they're staying in. Teachers were not staying in. We were risking our lives. Just so you know that. For what we get paid. Not enough. And so once I got to where I was going, it was like the most horrible district ever. Wow. Like words can't even describe it. But it was even more stressful. I was still trying to come up with what the next artistic thing was that I wanted to do. And I thought it was going to be watercolor. I actually bought my Meliang watercolor there. But I couldn't really get that going. And then, you know, in researching watercolor, I think there was something about using watercolor in coloring books or something. And that led me down the rabbit hole of coloring. And I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. There's a step gone. I don't have to draw the item. I could just start coloring it. And the thing that appealed to me was there's certain things I kind of lean towards drawing. But working in coloring books gives me the option to try lots of different things that I wouldn't normally do. That is not my style, so to say, that I kind of do. All right, so like I said, this is not opaque. We're going to need a second coat here. But all the time, you know, one of my goals was I would like to work smaller and actually finish things. So and remember, I had probably 50 or 60 massive paintings that I abandoned, threw away, with the goal of like finding a new way, a new medium to work in, just to, you know, have a refresh. Sometimes things get old and stale. But also with the goal of, you know, when I start something, I want to finish something. Didn't go well at first. And I should mention here, this is just a little painting tip. Now that I've got the first coat of paint on, painting on the second coat is easier. Like the first coat kind of gets sucked, depending on your paper, kind of gets sucked into the paper a bit. And so some papers you'll find, like I know my paints pretty well, like the black paint that I use, the Apple Barrel Black, for lots of backgrounds. In most books, that will go on, it'll be one coat and you're done. There may be a patch here or there that you gotta do a second coat on. But usually it's kind of a one coat wonder. There are other paints that I know definitely take two coats. However, sometimes there are papers that are super thirsty. And your paint whatever paint you're using may take an extra coat because it's just thirsty and it sucks it in. It's kind of like when you paint on wood. Oops. Kind of like when you paint on wood, the wood just really sucks in the paint right away, and you know you're going to do 2 or 3 coats if you're painting on naked wood. Back to my story. So when I started coloring, that was one of my main goals. Like, I don't want to have whips. I want to finish everything. And that's just kind of a personal artistic goal for myself. It's like, for whatever reason you're getting stuck on things, the exercise for me personally is to work through it. And I've, need more paint. I had some whips laying around. They're not laying around anymore, that were like 2 years old. But finally, and still working, severely limits my creativity capacity. I mean, you're tired from working all day. That's going to, we already know that when you're tired from working all day, your willpower goes away. We've all read the willpower books. Same with your creativity. It's like you need to be kind of well rested. At least I do. Maybe you don't. Lucky you. I kind of need to be well rested, especially on those things where I'm not sure, like I've reached a space where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do now. And that's usually where I get hung up, where I stop working on something. Although I find myself here now with a lot more free time, and I'm not having that problem. So, one of the things I'd kind of like to add to the conversation is, like, you have a demanding job, you have kids and husbands and yada, yada, yada. That may be a factor in how many whips you have going. Like, you did what you wanted to do in the piece, and now you don't know where you want to go from there. I mean, sometimes I just start a piece and all I have in mind is like the background. I don't know what's going to happen after I do the background. Or all I have in mind is the foreground and it's a little section of the foreground. So maybe you need to give yourself the space, since you're busy, your mind is busy doing other things, surviving the world, etc. Maybe you need to give yourself the time and let whips be okay if your brain is going in a lot of different directions. So, sorry, looking for another brush here. My add to the conversation part is you kind of have to decide on what your goals are. If you're like me, my main goal was to start pieces and finish pieces. I feel like I've been really, really doing that well lately. I'm just touching up here and there where it seems a little light. Now, my main goal was to retrain my brain to finish things more. And I feel like, especially lately, although I have a lot more time on my hands, so it's been a bit easier, that, I didn't want to be throwing away really missed some spots here. I didn't want to be, you know, throwing away a whole bunch of, like I did before, a whole bunch of canvases, although these aren't canvases. But I wanted to really be finishing. So when I started, so actually, you know, at coloring book number 1, that was one of my main goals, was to, you know, make sure that I don't have a whole bunch of whips. So the thing I'm adding to the conversation is you can set goals and decide that, well, maybe if you're one of the people that can only work on one at a time, maybe your goal might be to, okay, I'm going to override my brain thinking, and now I'm kind of watering down my paint a little bit more, because I'm just going over a few places that look like they need a little more paint to be opaque. So I just dipped in my water. Ooh, sorry, you're really shaking. And add a little bit of water to it. So just here and there where it might be a little patchy looking. So maybe if you want to overcome the only working on one piece at a time, and maybe that's a goal you have. Everybody's going to be different. It doesn't matter. Maybe you want to set yourself a goal of, I'm going to allow myself to work on 2 at a time. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to do that. Or I don't want to have these 10 whips that are outstanding, which was my goal in the recent past. I was finishing, it's still my goal. I want to finish these whips because, you know, when I started this, my goal was to kind of work on never finishing anything and just having all whips. And they actually take up space in my brain, like all the whips that I have plans for. Even pages that I haven't even started yet take up space in my brain. Like I have ideas for pages I haven't even started yet. So, you know, there's a lot of, I need the space in my brain. I need it to do other pieces. So sometimes it's important to get those like laid out on paper. All right, I think we're good enough, because remember there's going to be 3 other colors on here. There. So you can set a goal for yourself and work through the uncomfortableness of it. So like I said, if you're one of the people who's on one end of the extreme and can only work on a piece at a time, maybe say, okay, I'm going to allow myself to work on 2 pieces at a time. It's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to drive me crazy, but I'm going to do it. Or maybe you have a bunch, maybe your problem is like mine, like, you know, the start things and not finish them person. And I've been really good about it, although I did let myself have whips that were several years old. Of course, I was working, I was moving around the country, I was starting new jobs, I was, you know, there were things happening, it was okay. But I did circle back around, now that I have a little more time, and finish those. And the thing was, I really, really had to push through it. It's like, you know what, I'm going to finish this darn page, whether it looks good or not, just to have it done. But in doing so, all the pages that I did with that, they turned out okay. I don't think there were any that I like just really hated and wanted to like set on fire or anything. So, you know, there was that lesson to be learned too. It's like the pushing through lesson basically. So if you are, you know, concerned about whatever stage or, you know, wherever you are on the spectrum of whips, if you want to change that, go ahead and, you know, set a goal and change it. There's nobody is saying you can't. But you could also consider being okay with where you are. I mean, we're all watching these YouTube channels, and I mean, it happens to me too, and we're comparing ourselves with other people. Well, they do this many pages a month, and she does that many pages a month, and she does that many pages a month, and I can only get to 3 pages a month. And that was a thing for me for a long time. When I was working as a teacher, not the 40-hour-a-week job, I didn't have the time, energy, or creativity to really sit down and do 8 pages a week. But, having learned more about myself, the whole autism thing, I'm like, oh, that explains so much. Maybe I just need to be kinder and gentler with myself and say, I have this demanding job. I have a family to take care of. I have this or I have that, or I want to spend time with my pet, or I, want to watch this particular episode on TV or whatever. It's okay to only do 1 page a month or 20 pages a month, and people have different levels. I don't want to say levels. Well, maybe it's levels. Like some people do a really simple color 1 coat of alcohol marker on the page and call it done, and maybe they can get 50 pages a month done. And then some people, go in with a pencil and only a pencil, and they do all this blending and shading and maybe realism or something, and they can only get 1 done a month. It depends on, depends on a lot of things. It depends on your time, your energy level, where's your brain at, how's your brain wired. There's a lot of things that go into people's circumstances under which they do art. So I don't think you should compare yourself to another person. Like I said, be kind and gentle with yourself. If you want to change something, set a small goal. Small goal. Like, I do 1 page a month. Maybe I would like to do 2 pages a month, and figure out how can I get 2 pages a month done. Or I have 50 whips that I want to finish. Maybe you do 1 whip a month, depending on, what it is you want to change, what your goals are, etc. and so on. Maybe, here's a bold thought, maybe you don't need to change anything. Maybe you just need to accept that this is something I do for pleasure. If I have, 500 whips, it's okay. Some people are totally okay with that. I'm really jealous of the people, personally, who are very accepting of whatever about themselves. Maybe it's something that I don't like about myself, and I'm jealous that they're accepting about that because I don't like that about myself. But it means absolutely nothing to them. That's all that, but that's the comparison game too. So, I don't know. I don't know if my ramble here made any sense. And I don't know if I'm going to attach the whips. I guess I will. I guess I'll attach the process videos that I have of the things that are underway. I'm going to try if my phone will allow it. So if you see like 5 more minutes on the thing, keep watching. If you don't, well then we'll see you next time. But hopefully my my whole ramble of whips and pages and stuff like that made sense. I don't know if it did. But anyways, that's where I am on my kind of whip story, and how, I allow myself to have quite a few whips going, 10 or 15 even, but I do want to circle back around and get them done, in a relatively short-ish, sometimes years, amount of time, just because that's a personal goal that I have. And I feel like, having set that personal goal, it's like I'm doing it, I'm achieving it. Maybe it means I do less pages because I'm trying to wrestle with 1 page more than I would like, rather than cranking out more pages, more, because we're all trained oh, so-and-so does this many, or so-and-so does that many. It's like, it doesn't matter how many somebody else does. It's just you. Just grapple with your art that you're doing, is what I want to say. It's all okay, basically. But like I said, if there's something you don't like about yourself, figure out a way to work towards changing it. That's always good too. I like to say that people get better with age. We're like wine. We get better with age. And so we figure out ways to, change those things about ourselves that we don't like. Or, on the other hand, sometimes you have to accept. You have to accept yourself. Be kind and gentle with yourself and accept yourself the way you are. Okay, so if I attach the other clips that I've been saving, because this is now like 44 minutes long, so if I attach those, they'll be on the end here. If not, then we'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.